to the Ghost of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm McKelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 73 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today, we'll be discussing chapter 72, the final chapter of A Game of Thrones, which is Dany 10.
72? Wait, there's 72 chapters in this book.
It's amazing.
We've done
it.
What
a coincidence.
Well, as always, as we've done for the previous 71 chapters plus prologue, I guess, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully we're going to provide you some entertainment along the way.
We will summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, and indulge in a little pedantry. And we'll also got some reader mail today.
Yes.
Be sure to check out our show notes. They'll provide you some extra information, which will be handy if you're not reading along. How are you, McKelly, for the final time? Well, I mean, like, it's not like the final time. I mean, like, in a week's time, we're going to start chapter 1 of the next one, right?
Right. We are? I thought we were done. Wait, we got to do this all over again?
It's okay. Just think of this as the first set of a tennis match.
Right. Yes. A year plus long set.
Yeah.
I'm doing well. I'm in a merry, jolly mood. I just finished my last day of work for the year, so...
I've got one more.
Oh, yeah, you're working tomorrow? Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking you were off tomorrow. I thought you and I had the same vacation set up, but guess not. So I just came from the Luminaries. We just did the neighborhood Luminaries, and that was very nice. The Luminaries are when everyone in the neighborhood takes white paper bags and puts a candle in it, and they line the streets, and that's very pretty. Get you in the festive spirit. Just did that. It's
good you explained that because I'd never heard of them until like 5 years ago. So
yes,
some of our listeners won't know.
Apparently, you have to like opt in to do it. It's not like people don't just come around and do it. You have to. It's like a 10 cents per bag and candle, and you got to go pick them up and stuff. And so there's usually some gaps, but apparently this was the biggest turnout we've ever had.
Oh, that's good. That's
highest percentage.
They do look very nice when a neighborhood does it, but you really notice the people who don't do it. Because
they stand
the gap
out
in front of their houses. We did it a few years ago, and we had a neighbor who'd gone away for Christmas, and they paid and asked me to set up theirs in front of their house. And I was like, "It was very nice of you. You're not even here to enjoy it. You still did it." Yeah.
It's fun. It's cute. Molly enjoys it, and so do I. Who am I kidding?
Yeah, we know who's the big Christmas file in your house.
Right.
I am trying to set up some board games with my family in England.
Oh.
Who, man, I mean, not to get political or anything, but I am really scared for my family in England.
Yeah?
I mean, there's just the combination of Brexit and the new strain of coronavirus. It's like end times, the news from there.
Oh, man.
I mean, they're talking about like not having enough lettuce and broccoli in the stores.
Oh, my goodness. That trumps toilet paper, even.
Well, yeah, I mean, doesn't actually. I mean, toilet paper is kind of more urgent than those things. But, but that was because of panic buying. This is because we can't get that food anymore.
Oh, goodness.
Because we can't have people coming in or out of our country because we've got a new, more virulent strain of the coronavirus.
Right.
And we're not part of the European Union as of a week from now.
Oh, man. So this ties into board games somehow?
Oh, yeah. So my family, I want to do something with them because they're benighted and lost. And while they still have internet before the reaving starts.
Right.
I'm trying to arrange Zoom board games. So I've set up my tripod and phone hanging over a board game, and I'm going to do a Zoom call with video of the board game. It's going to be fun. I thought I might try it with you first, actually. I thought I might make you my guinea pig for this.
Definitely. So you may notice I've had the word kingdom written on this
I have noticed that. Yeah,
weeks.
We should tell the listeners what this section of the notes are called.
Should we?
This section is called witty banter. You wouldn't know.
So we say.
But yes, the word kingdom has been lurking here for a while. What is this word about?
It is so when I tell you this, you're not going to believe me. But I'm telling you, it's true. we watched this new show called Kingdom. It's not new. It actually ended like 2017, but was new to us. There's 3 seasons of it on Netflix. All 3. There was only 3 seasons of the show. All 3 are on Netflix. And when I tell you what it's about, you're going to think, I have no interest in this show. Which is exactly what I thought when my dad told me about it. It's about a family of MMA fighters, mixed martial arts fighters. And just kind of like their lives and all the drama that goes on in their lives and their close, immediate friends and families' lives. It is so good. In fact, I actually, the other day, got Stacy to quote this because I didn't want to get it wrong. She says it is her favorite TV show she's ever watched in the history of her life. She said it is, and now I don't agree with this part, but she said it is 10 times better than the Game of Thrones. And I was like, false. There's no such thing.
Well, I mean, that's a strong recommendation. I am skeptical of your taste sometimes, I have to admit. But I did just watch a movie about wrestling.
Fighting with Family. We talked
about
that
one. Yes,
yeah.
And I didn't hate that.
Yeah,
I'm not a big MMA fan.
No, me either. I know nothing about it. No, absolutely nothing about MMA. And Stacy knows even less. So to sell her on starting this show was not easy to do. But she loved it.
Possibly you not being that interested was possibly a selling point to her. If you'd come to her all sort of like, can we?
Please. Yeah.
Well, I shall give it a try then.
Yeah.
You just like the word, apparently. If a show has the word kingdom in it,
apparently
you're like, I want to watch that. Alright. The last time we saw Daenerys Targaryen, she was recovering from miscarrying Rhaego, waking to find the khalasar gone and Drogo alive, but in name only. Mirri Maz Duur was not exactly sorry or repentant. Dany's dragon eggs continue to stir for her, but appear every bit as lifeless as always to everybody else.
Yep.
She tries everything she can to bring Drogo back, but eventually gives up and smothers him with a pillow. So why don't we give him the summary of this chapter?
For the last time in the book, A Game of Thrones, the summary goes something like this.
We might have to mix it up for Clash of Kings, you know. You could do the recap and I start the summary.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to re-examine everything.
Yeah.
Well, so the remnants of the khalasar have cobbled together enough wood to qualify as a pyre for Khal Drogo. Mirri Maz Duur watches on as a stallion is brought forth and slaughtered on the pyre. She tells Dany that whatever Dany has in mind is not going to work. Dany, no more Ms. Nice Guy, has her whipped until she no longer feels the need to offer her opinions.
Ser Jorah begins to suspect what Dany has in mind and tells her that she has his sword, and unlike her brother, she has his heart. He beseeches her to let Khal Drogo go. He can offer no more than exile, but there are wonders to be seen, and who knows how fortunes might turn. Dany fondly tells him that she must do it, but he has misunderstood. She has no intention of dying in Drogo's pyre.
As the funeral arrangements are finalized, Dany addresses the 100-strong khalasar. She frees those who are in bondage, aside from Mirri Maz Duur, of course, and she asks each of her khas to become her blood riders, gifting each one in turn one of her bride gifts. To Drogo, her silver-handled whip, to Ago, a dragon-bone bow, and to Rakaro, her gilded arak. She pointedly ignores each in turn as they refuse her honor of being her blood rider. None will be led by a woman.
She has nothing for Jorah, but names him her first Queen's Guard. She goes and takes a hot bath. Her handmaidens work their magic and get her looking and smelling good. She does the same for Drogo's corpse. Ago and Drogo carry Drogo to the pyre, and Dany calls for her dragon eggs. Jorah counsels that they save the eggs, which are worth a fortune for the days to come. She refuses to sell them. She places them around Drogo. Next, she has Mirri Maz Duur tied to the pyre.
Dany thanks Mirri Maz Duur for the lessons. They wait for the first star of the night, and the first star is a red comet. Dany likes the portent. Thanks to lots of oil, the fire burns swiftly. Mirri Maz Duur sings as the khalasar steps back from the heat, but the song soon turns to screams as the fire takes Mirri Maz Duur. the heat continues to push everyone back except Dany. She is the blood of the dragon. She sees shapes in the fire and sloughs off her clothes as they catch fire.
As Dany steps into the fire, 3 great cracks are heard, and the pyre collapses. When it's finally cool enough for approach, Ser Jorah steps forward to see Dany naked, suckling 2 baby dragons.
Dragons?
With 3rd perched on her shoulder. I bet those of you who are not reading along are like, oh my god, there are dragons in this book. That's so exciting. There is quite a bit of dropping to knees, recanting of former slights, and promises of everlasting fealty. She can see the truth of it in their eyes. The 3 dragons bellow as best they can. They're so cute right now. Little tiny things.
Now they want to be part of her khalasar. Before
Exactly.
they were like, oh no.
Curtain! Dun, dun, dun. That is how it ends.
Yeah.
That's grand stuff.
Yeah, it ends with dragons. How exciting. We've got dragons.
I have to say, I mean, reading the books again, it does, I both love it and also I become aware of sort of some of the limitations of the books. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I don't dwell on those things. I mean, but you have to admire the complexity of the story reaching this sort of point that it's reached, and the sort of like the way we've reached these points. The logic of everything that's happened is so well put together, you know.
Absolutely,
The only parts of it that aren't logical are some of the behaviours and actions of the characters. But then human beings aren't logical, so that's perfectly reasonable. But the story just has a natural progression to this point, and full marks to George Martin for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well done. And you're right. Yeah, the characters do things that don't make a lot of sense sometimes.
Yes.
As do people in real life do things that don't make a lot of sense.
My joke about this last scene is that Dany has tried to convince people so many times that the eggs were doing something, and they keep touching the eggs and going, yeah, Dany, sure, that's hot. Oh, what's she talking about? that if I were her, I would be like, okay, you're seeing this, right? You see these 3 dragons. Yeah.
I'm not just imagining this. There's a dragon on my shoulder, isn't there?
Do you see the egg stirring now? Now that it's flying and breathing fire.
That was a good one.
So I have a question, actually. We usually go through the story sort of kind of sequentially, but is Dany trying to perform blood magic? Is that what's happened? Because definitely Mirri Maz Duur thinks that that's what she's doing.
Right.
Because Mirri Maz Duur confronts her and says, you don't know what you're doing here. You're trying something that you're not wise enough to do.
Yeah. She says, whatever you mean to do, it won't work. But to this point, like up until she steps into the fire herself, and I guess maybe when she puts the dragon eggs in there, it's pretty much your standard Dothraki funeral pyre.
Right.
They do all the normal things. They have to sacrifice a horse. They put his treasures around. It's a 3-story built structure. It kind of just is a regular old funeral pyre. So unless Dany had confided in her that she planned to do something different and that, you know, that Mirri Maz Duur was going to play a part in this funeral pyre.
Right.
I don't know if she let her know that ahead of time. Jorah surely wasn't involved in the discussion because he was shocked when when Dany said, you know, tie Mirri Maz Duur up in the pyre. He was like, what? No, wait, don't do that. You can't do that. And so he clearly wasn't aware ahead of time.
Yeah, because I mean, the whole point of the blood magic was a life for a life. Now, I'm presuming that the lives that are being brought forward are the lives of the 3 dragons. Because again, these eggs were petrified. They were not like fresh dragon eggs. They were stone.
Right.
And so, did 3 lives pay for 3 lives? Because I think in total there were 3 dead things at the end of the pyre.
Yep.
Mirri Maz Duur, the horse, and Khal Drogo. But Khal Drogo, of course, was already dead, so I don't know if that counts.
Right. I see what you're saying.
But then, on the other hand, I thought, well, was it Dany herself? I mean, Dany is the blood of the dragon, but she walked into a fire.
There's definitely some Phoenix imagery going on here. Her dying and being reborn by going into that fire. First of all, even all her hair is burnt off. So she loses all her beautiful beautiful silver hair, and she goes in there almost kind of like her dream, where the dream started as her being a girl, and she comes out being the dragon. There's definitely a rebirth vibe going on there, so you could definitely feel that.
I believe I'm right in saying that there's nothing in history to suggest that any Targaryen has been fireproof before.
No, in fact, several Targaryens have been known to have burned to death, most notably Aegon V and his son Duncan in the tragedy at Summerhall, where it was also rumored that they had been trying to hatch a dragon egg.
So yeah, in actual fact, if you think about it, if you compare the two pieces of blood magic, if you assume this is blood magic, the first piece of blood magic was a life for a life, and Mirri Maz Duur, after the fact, said the life for the life was Rhaego's life for Drogo's life.
Yeah.
And so, if you actually think about it, this time, the only life that's actually being sacrificed is Mirri Maz Duur's.
Right.
The horse doesn't count. The horse didn't count last time. It doesn't count this time.
Yeah.
So then... But maybe Mirri Maz Duur, because she's got 3 names, she counts for 3 eggs.
That's what it is. She says after Dany puts the eggs around Drogo on the pyre, Dany walks off and Mirri Maz Duur says, "You're mad." And I'm not exactly what she means by that.
See, that's why I think it's blood magic, because she has no interest in the value of the eggs. Right. She's not saying, don't burn your precious eggs.
Exactly.
She's then going... Oh my god, she's trying to reincarnate those dragons. That's what she's trying to do.
Oh, yes. So maybe she picked up on it because Dany had been talking about the dragon eggs and are they hot to the touch and, feeling them twist. Maybe she picked up on that this is what Dany's ultimate plan was.
Yeah. The thing was, you see, for me, from watching the show and reading the book previously, I'd always just assumed the eggs just needed a hot enough fire to do this to them, to bring this back to life. But reading it this time and sort of thinking about it a bit more carefully, I definitely feel like Dany was at least trying to replicate the the blood magic that Mirri Maz Duur did.
Yeah, certainly seems it. And so Dany thinks as she is standing there watching the pyre really get hot, she thinks she knew, the line goes something like, she knew long ago, but the brazier wasn't hot enough. And I believe that's in reference to when she was in Vaes Dothrak, after the failed assassination attempt, Jorah said that King Robert wanted her and the baby dead, and that gets Dany all fired up, and she thinks that Robert has woken the dragon, and then she looks at her eggs and gets a crazy idea and asks Jorah to light the brazier, and then kicks him out, and then she puts the eggs in the fire until the fire dies out and nothing happens. So, yeah, just wasn't a hot enough fire. She's thinking it here as she's watching that the fire needed to be hotter than the brazier. And this fire seemed pretty hot because it says the air itself seemed to liquefy from the heat. So it must have been pretty hot fire.
That sounds hot. Yeah. But the eggs have been acting up more and more lately, at least to Dany, to nobody else, but to Dany they have.
Yeah.
So, perhaps this is all sort of the culmination of her growth towards being the dragon, which required several things. Viserys to die, her to lose Drogo, her to lose Rhaego. Maybe all of these things had to be stripped away before she could become the dragon. And once she became the dragon, then the dragons became viable as...
Yeah, I like that. Makes some sense. I can definitely see that.
Yeah, so, but again, now I think she's trying her hand at amateur blood magic. That's what I think she just did.
Yeah.
Maybe it was unnecessary. Maybe they just would have hatched in the heat anyway. But I think she was trying her hand at blood magic.
Definitely a lot of evidence to support that. So speaking of the fire, when Dany walks into the fire, she sees many things in the fire. She sees crimson fire lions, yellow serpents, unicorns made of blue flame, fish, foxes, monsters, wolves, bright birds, and flowering trees. And a lot of that sounds like Westerosi sigils to me. And they're split into 3 groups. And if you notice, the first group in each of the 3 represents a house at war. Crimson fire lions, fish, crimson fire lions, obviously the Lannisters, fish, the Tullys, wolves, obviously the Starks. Now,
yes.
There's not a perfect fit for some of these. Like the first group is fire lions, yellow serpents, and unicorns made of pale blue. The yellow serpents, I don't have a clear one-to-one answer for. There are later in this story, not trying to spoil, and I don't think this is a spoiler, but there are people referred to as sand snakes.
Sand snakes, yes.
And their father is a red viper, which, maybe we got yellow serpents out of that. The unicorn made of pale blue, I really think there is a character who goes on quite the story arc. And in that story arc, tries to become a much better person. And they interact with someone who has to do with blue sapphires. And I think if we take all that together, we might possibly be talking about that person, but I can't bring it up yet because it's quite the spoiler if I did.
Off air, you'll have to tell me who the heck you're talking about because I've got no clue.
To you.
Okay, yeah. He mouthed it to me, listeners. So.
Yes. I wish I could say, because it's just totally, I was just really reaching there. But it's the best I could come up with. There is a unicorn house, of course, House Brax, but that's a purple unicorn, so it doesn't really fit.
But then, in flames, it might be hard to get the colours just so.
True, that could be. Got to work with it a little bit here. We're talking about fire. So then the next group is fish, the Tullys, it seems most likely. Foxes. Now the Florents have a fox for their sigil, and Stannis' wife, Selyse, is a Florent. So maybe it's in some way associating the Florents. And then for monsters, I was thinking possibly the Kraken of Greyjoy. Maybe.
Yeah.
And then in the last group, we get wolves. Clearly the Starks. I can't think of anything that wouldn't be, could be other than the Starks. Bright birds and flowering trees. I need more time to think about those ones.
Just run out of time.
I will say, the flowering trees, the Tyrell's sigil is a gold rose. Flowering. There's lots of trees in the Reach. I'm sure it's a very fertile area. So maybe that's some reference to the Tyrells. I'm not sure. But...
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Yeah, when I read it, I didn't spot all this, but yes, there are. Definitely, there's enough connections there for it not just to be like random imagery.
Exactly. When I read it through the first time, I didn't really think about it either, and then I thought, why did I just read that? The second time through, I was like, why is this in here? Yeah. It can't just be in here for fun. There's got to be meaning behind it. So that's the best I could come up with. I'd be interested if any listeners have any other ideas. Let us know. I'd be interested to hear.
So the first star that comes up, there's some connection between the lighting of the pyre is supposed to coincide with first starlight, and the first star that comes up is this bright red comet that's appeared in the sky pretty much ever since Ned's death. It was sort of like the first time that this happen. But of course, Dany doesn't know about that. For her, it's a sign that Drogo is off to the Nightlands to do great things.
Right.
Clearly, it's
was
just for him. We remembered Lewin and Bran were looking at the comet in Bran 7
in the chapter where they found out that Ned had been killed. Yeah,
exactly. So Jorah calls Dany my princess at one point in this, and she rather archly corrects him with, now wait a minute, if my father was the king and then he died and then all my brothers died, does that make me again? And he was like, I'm sorry, my queen.
Yeah.
So it actually reminds me of a joke from Blackadder, where the scene starts with Advisor talking to the queen and she's saying, I think orange. And he says, I think grey is more common, Your Majesty. And she says, who's queen? And he says, as you say, Your Majesty, there were these magnificent orange elephants.
That's right. He's been calling her princess since. Obviously, it would make sense while Viserys was alive, but
also perhaps while Drogo was alive as well.
I guess.
But no, I mean, she's still Queen of Westeros at that point, you know.
Right? Yeah.
I guess now it means more to it. Now she's got ambitions to the throne that she never had before.
Yes, now she's the dragon.
I was really struck in this chapter by the disrespect that the 3 members of her khas showed her. Because she goes out and gives them her bride gifts. You know, the 3 gifts she was given as a bride. She gives them away to them and asks them to be her blood riders. And they all 3 sort of like look sort of like mortified, accept the gifts, but refuse point blank to become her blood riders. And she just carries on as if no one's saying anything, you know, as if everyone's just going, thank you, and moves on to the next one.
I found that almost a little comical, the way she just kept ignoring their... Because they weren't like... They were just like blunt, like, nope, can't do this. It would humiliate me to be the of a woman. Cannot do it. Sorry, I will not say these words. But you notice they didn't turn down those gifts. They were all too happy to accept those. And then they took the gift and then they were like, yeah, no, I'm not doing it.
But I think even the first one, who got the first one? Was it Drogo got the first one?
Yeah.
He got Drogo got the first one.
He got
even
the
he was kind of hesitant to accept the gift, I think, because he like... I don't really want to take this if that'll give you the impression that I'm accepting this. Because, I mean, that's nice and everything, but I think in Dany's mind, she's just like, I'm just going to ride through this, and in 12 hours, these guys are going to be sorry that they were disrespectful to me.
I think that is exactly what she was thinking. Now, of course...
Or I'm going to get burnt to a crisp and it won't make any difference.
Right. One or the other, the problem's going to be solved here shortly. Of course, Jorah jumps at the offer quickly, like immediately he's all in. And I was thinking, man, have you ever heard of playing a little hard to get? No.
You look awful thirsty there, Jorah.
Yeah, exactly. We had also wondered if anybody had thought or had plans of taking Dany to Vaes Dothrak to join the Dosh Khaleen, because that's what's supposed to happen when the Khal dies. The Khaleesi has to go to Vaes Dothrak and join the Dosh Khaleen. And, you know, we had not heard anybody voice this, but in this chapter, I think it's Ricaro maybe says, yeah, I'll protect you on the way to Vaes Dothrak for you to join the Dosh Khaleen, but then that's it. Then we go our separate ways.
Yeah.
So...
Which again, I think we talked about this before. It's a kind of a good outcome for them, because in Vaes Dothrak, they're sort of protected. And they could perhaps sell themselves out to another khalasar without sort of like having to be killed to join the khalasar.
Become a slave or something, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So Dany frees all the remaining slaves in her 100-strong khalasar. When you said 100 strong before, I was like, surely you mean 100,000, but no, it's literally 100.
Just 100.
Many of whom were slaves. And she tells them they can leave or stay as brothers and sisters. This can't be easy for the Dothraki to wrap their heads around. It's not that easy for the now newly freed slaves, I would imagine, you know.
Right.
Now you're brothers and sisters with the guys who raped you last week.
Exactly, yeah. That's it's got to be tricky for all involved. It's going to take some time. But luckily, as we've gotten the description of the khalasar, we know that there are a lot of young and a lot of old. You know, the old are likely to die out in this barren wasteland that they're currently in, and the young can be raised to think differently than, they would have been under a true Dothraki regime. So, got that going for them.
So I think it's always been clear that Dany was going to get into competition for the Iron Throne, and she has drawn an ace here. I mean,
absolutely. 3 aces, if you will.
3, yes. which I think in poker that probably would be enough.
It should be, yeah. Unless someone's got a royal flush sitting over there, you should be in pretty good shape.
But is it enough? She had a determined khalasar of 50,000 Dothraki screamers, and now she has 3 baby dragons. It's... Long term, it might be a good trade. Short term, it doesn't seem that good.
Exactly. It's a bit of a step down at the moment. But
right, for sure.
You wait.
They're certainly more portable.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, you can get all of that back to Westeros on one boat. Not
you can get them there in a rowboat if you got someone rowing it for you.
But can she keep them alive long enough to be her golden ticket back to the Iron Throne? Is the question.
Yeah, as a Targaryen, and she, of course, is the only Targaryen that we know of in recent memory that wasn't raised in Westeros, growing up around other Targaryens. So, does she have any idea how to take care of baby dragons? Like, did she come with a book of like care and keeping of baby dragons?
Well, but I mean, literally, they're suckling from her, right?
Yes. At the moment, they are. Yeah.
I think that'll take care of it for now.
Now, yes.
Yes.
At some point, she's going to have to teach them to do things.
Well, I don't know. I think maybe... Look, I'm not an expert in dragon husbandry myself, but I'm thinking once the dragons wean, they will probably want to eat meat. And they can fly. They have huge talons, and they breathe fire.
Right, which is part of the problem is control. I've got a 10-pound dog upstairs that I struggle with not growling and snarling at people. If she was a multi-ton flying beast that can breathe fire, I'd be in some serious pet ownership trouble.
Yes. It's a good point. Hopefully they're just like calm, gentle creatures who
much like your Penny and not like my Penny.
No, more like my Twiggy. She's a nutcase.
Penny's taken on a personality, huh?
She has developed personality, yes. Not all to the good.
Oh, man.
I like her, but she is a little bit nuts. So what's Dany's best strategy? That's my question here. So I'll throw a couple of things out at you. Go back to Westeros now while the dragons are small. She knows through Jorah that she's got some allies over there.
Right.
She could find a friendly castle, hide out there while the dragons grow.
Yeah, you're right. It would need to be a defensible location unless those dragons grow really fast, because you'd have to think the houses that are at war would not look fondly upon Targaryen showing back up, especially with dragons.
Right, but of course she doesn't know about the war.
Right.
As far as she's aware.
Right.
Robert. I mean, does she even know that Robert is right?
No, I don't think so.
Right. So Robert still sits the throne. The place is in peace, but there are Targaryen loyalists with whom she could be secreted. Now, I would say you find one of them, you hide out, hopefully somewhere fairly remote, so that as the dragons grow and start to sort of like fly, people aren't reporting it to other places. But it feels like you could.
Right. I was thinking, off the top of my head, Dorne might be a good option. Dorne is kind of remote from the other 6 kingdoms. And
do we think do we think the Martells are loyal to the Targaryens just because they were married into the family very recently?
Right. And they despise the Lannisters. So they would certainly not want to get involved with them if they didn't have to. Yeah.
But again, from Jorah and Dany's point of view, the Lannisters aren't in charge, the Baratheons are.
Right. Yeah. Unless you...
They think Robert Baratheon, who's definitely not a Lannister, is in charge,
Right.
So the other thing about going back to Westeros is that you could start to build up a network of allies. I mean, so you find a really loyal family with whom you can, lay low.
Yeah.
And you then sort of slowly, one by one, you start to invite the people you think most likely to be loyal to you. You invite them slowly into your inner circle and you reveal what's going on. I mean, again, from my perspective, those lords who get that opportunity, you've got two choices. One is you could betray her. You could betray her to the king and say, "Dany, she's back. She's got dragons. Quick, quick, quick!"
Yeah.
Or you can pledge fealty to her. You can bend your knee and say, "You're the true queen of Westeros. Please don't set those dragons on me."
Right.
And I think one of those will get you some short-term gain, but not very much. The other one, you could stand to be one of the 7 great lords pretty soon.
Right, yeah.
Within a few years.
Yeah. Buy low, sell high.
Right.
Get in on the ground floor on this budding enterprise here. Now, of course, she could also go back to the Free Cities. They could get back to the Free Cities and maybe go back to Illyrio Mopatis and at least spend some time there. These dragons are pretty small. You might be able to hang out at his manse for a while and sort things out.
I'm just not sure the dragons are cut out for suburban living. I think they might be.
Yeah.
They might be more country folk.
They're the country mouse, not the city
because
mouse.
Literally, I mean, think about how many people in the free. I mean, the first time a dragon flies over the Free Cities, someone's going to want to catch that thing.
Yeah.
And sell it.
Yep. I see what you're saying.
I think wherever you stay, you've got to lay low.
Yes, definitely. Which is why I was thinking Dorne.
And one question I have is, what would be the reaction in Westeros? I mean, regardless of whether she comes back now or later, let's assume Dany rides at the head of an army with 3 dragons flying above her.
Right.
What's the reaction going to be? I mean, when Aegon the Conqueror came, he battled for many years to unify the 7 kingdoms.
Yeah, 3
But
years.
that's partly because almost everyone he was fighting, they were fighting the dragons for the first time.
Uh-huh. Yep, they didn't quite realize the power of the dragon.
Right, but they were too dead to tell anybody else and warn them, don't fight those dragons. And so by the time word finally got around to people like Torrhen Stark, they made the smart decision and bent the knee.
Right.
And so I wonder now if the lords of Westeros, who know what dragons can do, I mean, okay, their data is 300 years old, but absolutely they know that the dragons destroyed everything in their path.
Yeah.
Would they just go, whoa, not making the same mistake as my...
Bending the knee.
Not my ancestors, because they're all dead. The ancestors of the people who would be in this lordship, were it not for the fact they were all dead, and my family got the benefit of it, and I'm going to bend the knee.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it depends on the size and strength of the dragons at the time.
Yeah.
If they're baby dragons, you might go to war and try and either capture or kill those dragons. If they're full-grown or nearly full-grown dragons, that's a totally different story.
Yeah. And one thing to remember, I mean, what we know from our historical reading, this is, I don't think this counts as a spoiler, because if you read the historical bits, you can get this. Her forebears rode the dragons.
Right.
They didn't ride a horse with the dragons flying above them. They were on the dragons flying around. So
exactly. Is
she going to do that? And
that'd be
does
pretty
she
cool
need to find 2 other dragon riders?
Yeah, exactly. Because we'll get into dragon history now that we've got dragons. I've been kind of holding off a little bit on some dragon history and stuff, but dragons will only allow 1 rider that's living, no matter how closely associated another person might be. Like, Dany chooses the black dragon to ride. She can't be riding the other dragons. She can only...
Oh, really? So it's not just that nobody else can ride the black dragon. She can't ride the other 2 dragons.
I believe that's how it works. You bond with a dragon. You develop a bond with a dragon, and that's your dragon. Kind of like an Avatar, how you make that connection with the flying thing that is like a dragon. So yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I know for a fact that only 1 person can ride a dragon, unless that person dies. Then the dragon might form another bond with someone else.
Right, yeah. So can the other 2 still fight without riders, or do they need to be ridden to be useful in battle?
Yeah,
because without a rider, they might just burn everything up.
Right.
I see people fighting. You want me to burn all that? Right, here we go. So one other thought I had about the birth of the dragons, just going back to this, and just sort of like, hear me out, because this is a bit speculative, but I wonder if we've sort of had a coming full circle moment. So 300 years ago, Westeros was many kingdoms, and with many kings.
Right.
Until the Targaryens claimed they were outsiders, they had no claim on the kingdoms, but they had 3 dragons. And just in the very last chapter, if you remember, was the King in the North chapter, where basically we discovered that there are at least 3 kings in Westeros now, probably 4, between Joffrey, Stannis, Renly, and Robb Stark. So the work that the Targaryens did, that Aegon the Conqueror did, to unify the 7 kingdoms, unravelled just one chapter ago.
Uh-huh.
And so, while the 7 kingdoms were stable, the dragons died out.
Right.
Because they weren't needed anymore.
Yeah.
But last chapter, the kingdoms fell apart, and this chapter, the dragons were reborn. So I just wonder if that's it. If that was the precipitant to the rebirth of the dragons, more than the fire, more than the blood magic. It was just time. The dragons needed to come back because the 7 kingdoms fell apart, and that's the dragons' role in this, is to be the unifying force.
I like that. Yeah, if you're in the Dance of the Dragons, which was the Targaryen Civil War, lots of dragons died, but I believe there was like 4 left after the war, and there was lots of dragon eggs. We know at least one of those dragon eggs hatched, and that dragon was small and stunted and didn't live very long. But it laid 5 eggs, none of which hatched. So maybe the eggs stopped hatching because the dragons were no longer needed. The realm was fairly stable. And now they're back because the realm is in chaos. Yeah. I could see some logic behind that. Oh, and just to be clear, I don't know for a fact that one person can't ride multiple dragons. If Dany got riders for the other dragons, she then definitely wouldn't be able to go riding those dragons.
Right. I understand that, because they would then be bonded to that rider.
Yes.
But I was thinking, while they were not bonded to a rider, she might be able to jump around between the 3 of them.
Yes.
But possibly. Hey, she's only got 1 bottom. So.
I'd have to do some research on whether she can hop around on multiple dragons. That's an interesting question. I'll see what I can dig up.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, if you imagine, I don't know how big. I do know how big these dragons are going to grow, but I don't know, because I'm pretending I don't know how big these dragons are going to grow. If they grow very big, the weight of Dany Targaryen probably wouldn't tire one out over the other 2.
You would think, yes. All 110 pounds of her would
exactly. Yeah.
Not
so she wouldn't feel the need to share her load across them. I mean, maybe she can use them for carrying her stuff around.
Right.
Saddle bags. Yeah. You got some background for this?
A little bit.
Where'd you get this from?
So, right now, they're kind of in a barren wasteland, and that's why they were having trouble just finding wood to build this pyre. And so the area that they're in is called the Red Waste, and it is a desert region located south of the Dothraki Sea and Lazar, which is where the Lazarine are from, obviously. It's east of Slaver's Bay, north of the city of Qarth, and west of the Bone Mountain. So it's very much in the far southeast part of Essos. So since they left the Lazarine village, they seem to have traveled south and maybe a little bit east at this point. So within the Red Waste, there are several abandoned cities, all formerly inhabited by the Cothi, who come from Qarth, until they were sacked by the Dothraki, much of which was done during the Century of Blood after the Valyrian freehold blew up, basically. South of the Red Waste, along the Summer Sea, are from west to east the cities of Port Yos, Carcash, and Qarth. And beginning at Qarth, the Sand Road travels north through the eastern Red Waste along the Dry Bones, which is what the southern part of the Bone Mountains is called. And then it turns east and goes off in that direction. The Red Waste was originally a more fertile region, but it turned into a barren desert just as the Cothi established those city-states there.
Huh. Well, thank you. I didn't know any of that stuff, so I appreciate that.
They're in a bit of a pickle, because they're really in the middle of nowhere, and they don't have a great way of getting food for all these people.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, they've only got 100 of them, so not that many hungry mouths to feed, frankly. So comparison with the television show, the building of the pyre is dwelled on in the book and is completely skipped in the TV show. She does free the slaves, but does not give her gifts to the khas. Okay. That bit is missed. The disrespect that she's shown is actually channeled into the slaves. When she frees them, about half of them walk off.
That's right, because she does say, you can leave and no one will question you. And they're like, okay.
And in the book, nothing happens, but in the TV show, half of them are like, okay then. They leave. She swallows when she sees them leaving, but ignores it. At that point, Mirri Maz Duur grins. And at that point, Dany has her chained to the pyre. Like, that is the final straw. You laughed at that.
You laughed at my dismay.
Exactly. Dany doesn't place the eggs next to Drogo. Rakaro does it. Jorah, calling her my queen, no mistakes, TV show Jorah, begs with her to not kill herself on the pyre, but she kisses him in reassurance. There is no horse in this episode. I reckon they just killed another horse. They felt that was probably enough horse killing for one season. Yeah. But Dany does say to Mirri Maz Duur, it's not your screams that I want, just your life, which again hints at the blood magic to me.
Right.
She isn't saying, I want you to die, because that will be fun for me. She's saying, I want your life, because it means something, yeah.
Right.
The images and the flames are skipped. The CGI budget all went on to 3 baby dragons who are so cute. They flap around and stuff. Pedantry. Just 2 things. Fire is dangerous, children. Don't try this at home.
Yep.
It's not pedantry.
It's not pedantry, but it's good
public
advice.
Service announcement. Yep. But I do have some pedantry. They are so liberal with the oil on this pyre. Now, I get it. They want to give Khal Drogo a send-off, right? But how difficult must it be in the Dothraki Sea to come across oil?
Oh, right.
Where do you get oil from? I mean, are you squeezing grass? I mean, this oil, but they're throwing like amphoras of oil on this thing, like gallons of the stuff. Why did the previous khalasars not take this obviously incredibly valuable oil with them?
Yes, it's a very, very good point.
I have no idea. Now, they're splashing it around like it grows on trees, which is ironic because they can't find any trees.
Unless it grows in dirt, they're in trouble.
The pyre is all oil, basically. It's Khal Drogo lying in a vat of oil. So I thought that was a little bit silly.
Yeah, I did not think of that. That's good. I like it.
You know me. I live for the pedantry.
You do indeed.
News and notes?
Oh, we do have some news and notes. Well, it's not necessarily news or notes, but we got a question from Rob.
Rob that we know?
Yes. Rob.
Oh, that Rob. Okay.
That Rob, yes.
Okay.
Rob actually sent this email weeks ago, but I've been hanging on to it for this final chapter because he asked about
we can disrespect him. We don't have to jump on his questions.
Rob, there's a reason why we can disrespect Rob, of course. Rob being Simon's brother, Rob. We don't disrespect just any general listener. We love our listeners. But Rob asked some questions about our thoughts after we'd finished the book. So that's why it seemed like the logical thing to hold it until
all right, go on then.
This chapter. So his first question is...
We'll indulge him.
He says, I know you have seen all the books. I assume he means read the book, seen the TV show. But who are your favorite characters based on the first book only? That's question 1. Do you want me to go? Because I knew these questions were coming. So give you a second to think about it.
You've been thinking about these for weeks, apparently. Yeah. Well, go on then. Who have you got?
I kind of forgot until a few hours ago. And I was like, oh, I better think of some answers to these. But I did know they existed, so at least I have a little bit of a head start. So as far as my favorite character, I stink at favorites. But I guess I would say Ned. And it's not just because I admire how he always tries to do the right thing and tries to be honorable and selfless and all that. And I admire that about him. But also because chapters around Ned usually involved high matters of state and realm, or mystery, trying to solve the who killed Jon Arryn and all that stuff, or espionage, and that was always kind of interesting chapters. So that probably colored my opinion on him.
Yeah.
I also like his mix of rigidity and softness. He on one hand always tried to have the stiff upper lip and do live the rigid true life, but at the same time he was a big old softy when it came to his kids, and I appreciate that. And as far as like minor characters, I thought of I really like Great John Umber. Yeah, I enjoy him.
He's spectacular.
Jeor Mormont and the Hound. I like all three.
Okay,
I
interesting.
appreciate all three of those characters.
All right, so POV characters, for me it's Tyrion. I just love Tyrion. Yeah. I do appreciate everything you're saying about Ned, though, about the fact that he's in the most interesting sort of... Every chapter he was in, he's at the centre of the action. And so I liked to read the Ned chapters too. But Tyrion's just a great character. I mean, in some ways I feel... You get a sort of flawed anti-hero. He's always going to be more interesting than your Ned Starks of this world, for instance. But I think he's really well done, Tyrion. But then, thinking about minor characters, I really like sort of Peter Baelish and Varys, because I love what you like about Ned, but I like their contributions to that more than Ned's, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah. He asks who's best written as well, doesn't he? Sorry, am I jumping on to the next question?
That's the next question, yeah.
I would say the one thing that I think I've really noticed here is that Jon is the worst written character.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you I agree with you. That's the third question.
Well, actually, that isn't the third question, is it? Who do you dislike the most? I don't dislike Jon. I think he's the worst. Who do you dislike
the most, or?
Oh yeah, I see that now. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Right. So the next question is, who's the best written?
Or it's who's the best written and who do you personally associate with? I don't know. For me, that's not the same person.
I think Kat is pretty well written, but the problem with Kat is that she is fundamentally... Every time you think about Kat, you think about the mistakes she's made.
Yeah.
And that kind of undermines it. But I actually think that her story arc was quite tightly done. And quite, so I'll give some credit to Kat there. Who do I personally associate with? One character that, having read what's coming in the rest of this little section now, one character that I've begun to really associate with is Gregor Clegane.
Does this have anything to do with him pushing his brother's face into the fire?
That's it! That's why I like that guy. It seems like a great idea. Because what I'm reading is here. It says, I'm assuming for Simon it's Viserys or Joffrey, who Rob thinks I am. Basically, anyone who's tried to kill their younger, better-looking siblings.
I left that part in.
Thanks.
I could have just copied the question over, but I wanted to leave that part in there.
Yes. Well done, the Mountain. I understand why you did it.
As far as who I think is best written, I thought of Tyrion. I think he is a well-written character. He's got really good depth to him. He's got really good cleverness. He's got curiosity and self-loathing. He's honest, but also flexible.
Here's my thing about that, though. Those things make him easier to write.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you have someone straight-laced, it's harder to make them interesting because they're straight-laced. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, yeah. Being straight-laced can be perceived as boring. And as far as who I associate with, again, I chose Ned. He's probably the closest in age to me. We're probably around similar age. We have kids around similar ages. And as a parent, I get his helpless fear for his daughters at the end of his chapters, as his chapters wind down. And I too would have said whatever was necessary to keep my kids safe as he did. Then the last question is, who do you dislike the most? either as a personality, or who do you feel has been written badly? And then he said inconsistent or just weird.
Well, I think the character that's probably rubbed us all the wrong way the most is Kat. You know?
Yeah,
as we've
you're
talked
right.
about her.
It's mostly just because she makes very questionable decisions at times.
Yeah.
I feel like, and he didn't have a POV, so it's not necessarily fair to say he was poorly written, but I felt like Viserys was the flattest character that we've come across.
Viserys, yeah.
He was nothing but selfish and like single-minded. Nothing, no depth at all to him. No redeeming qualities at all.
Yeah. But I don't dislike any of them. I mean, obviously, I dislike the ones you're supposed to dislike.
Right.
I will say that the whole one of the things that the TV show gave us, and I think perhaps the number and nature of the POV characters changes as we go from book to book, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We have not got to meet all of the characters that I feel I know very well in my soul,
right,
in this book. People like Cersei Lannister.
Uh-huh.
She's barely in this book. I mean, she has like that one conversation with Ned. She gets hit by Robert.
Yeah.
She kills Lady.
Well, thank you, Rob. I appreciate... Simon's face looks less appreciative than mine.
No, I appreciate him reaching out to us. Don't take it wrong, Rob.
I appreciate Rob coming along for this journey. He's not read the books.
He's been with us the whole time, and he has made us laugh occasionally.
Yeah, and his pre-recorded call-in show video brought me lots of amusement.
Yeah,
that was very well done.
Yes, I have laughed at that myself. Well, anyway, that was kind of a fun book. It's taken us more than a year to get through it, but I will say that the story really does race along. I mean, maybe reading it at the pace we're reading it at gives it that chance to race along because we're doing these small sections once a week, so we get these sudden bursts of activity, you know.
Right.
But there's a little bit of treading water at the wall and some in Essos, but in retrospect, those chapters were bringing depth and colour to their payoffs. At least, certainly in Essos, anyway. I don't think we've really had the payoff at the wall yet, but we certainly in Essos we have.
Yeah, I think we're going somewhere with the wall, with Jon at the wall. It's certainly feel it building.
Yeah, and I would give props to George Martin here because the story is fabulous in every sense of that word.
Right.
But the logic and self-consistency are irrefutable. You know, we've reached points that, looking back on it, we were always going to get to these points. You know, the decisions made by the characters along the way, you know, sometimes stupid, but those are decisions people might make.
Indeed. So, in this conclusion, let's just use it as to conclude the whole book, not just this chapter. So, let's take a spin around all our POV characters and kind of wrap up where they are, conclude where they are. So let's start with Sansa. Last we saw Sansa, she is a hostage in the Red Keep, still married to Joffrey, but no longer thinks he is the gallant prince or king that
that's real growth right there.
Yeah. You'd think she's fairly safe, at least for her life's purpose anyway. The rest of her maybe not so safe, but her life seems fairly safe as long as Jaime is captive, as long as the Starks have Jaime. But then again, we're dealing with Joffrey here, so
yeah. Her happiness is not safe.
No,
it's extremely vulnerable,
and you just can't trust him to not also lop her head off if he
felt
so inclined.
Arya is still in the wind and surely pretty traumatized at seeing her father executed, but she does have some adult supervision in the form of Yoren of the Night's Watch. No word yet on what they're planning to do, but I mean, he's in King's Landing to get recruits for the Night's Watch, so presumably at some point he's going to head north.
Right.
He's going to make her look like a boy. That's the plan.
Sure seems like it. He kept calling her boy. I don't think it was an accident. And so then we got Jon, and he seems to be over, at least he says he's over the whole deserting, getting revenge for his father thing. And he also appears to be headed north of the wall. So, he seems excited about that. But again, we talked about this in the Jon chapter. You have to wonder about the decision to put the members of the Night's Watch on the wrong side of the huge wall, which was built to keep the things on that side of the wall out.
Yep. Catelyn Stark is now reunited with her Tully family, but she's basically a stranger to most of her children now. She's been, almost the entire book, she has been estranged from every one of them, with the exception of Robb.
Right. Yeah. It really has. That is sad. Yeah. For all involved, that's sad. Well, then we've got Ned, and he's mostly dead. I don't think there's any more to say about Ned. Yeah.
If the others get through the wall, maybe, but I think he may be other-proof where he is.
I think so. Yeah, that one it would be hard for even an other to bring him back as a wife.
Yeah. Daenerys Targaryen, she's got dragons, but she's also in the middle of a barren desert with nothing but hungry mouths around her. Where does she go from here?
And how does she get, she wants to go back to Westeros. You'd think that was her original goal. Right now, she probably just wants to get out of the Red Waste. But, she had those very near priceless dragon eggs, but she traded those in for 3 dragons. She's not gonna sell one of her dragons, right?
Presumably not, yes.
So now she's broke and got a whole bunch of mouths to feed, including 3 dragons. So, and we got Tyrion. He's on his way to King's Landing to rule the kingdom. So that's a big step up from being in the dungeons of the Eyrie.
True. And Bran, of course, was another POV character. He's at Winterfell, clearly not getting better. He's going to be paralyzed for the rest of his life.
Sure seems like it.
He is the Stark in Winterfell, because he's the only Stark in Winterfell.
Oh, wait.
Insert Rickon joke.
Have to end this with a Rickon joke.
But we've made the point before that Winterfell looks a little bit vulnerable, and we're also not sure exactly what all of Bran's dreams means. Certainly one of Bran's dreams was about his father dying, but he's had some other odd dreams about sort of crows, 3-eyed crows, and or 3-eyed ravens, I should say, and weirwoods and things like that. So he seems to be getting in touch with his blood of the first men that flows through his veins, it seems.
Right. Yeah. He's having some prescient dreams, possibly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap on a Game of Thrones, huh?
Wrap party.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take a moment to thank you all for coming along with us on this ride. We have a laugh doing this, but it is certainly work, and I'm not sure that given the vicissitudes of 2020, we'd have kept going were it not for all of the positive feedback we get and the affirmation we get from our listeners. So thank you all ever so much, and we're really looking forward to getting started on Clash of Kings. So stick with us.
Yeah, you said it all. So I have nothing really more to add to that other than ditto what he said. Thank you very much. We very much enjoyed. When we started, I didn't know if we'd get all the way through this book. We did. So
yeah. I thought, I don't know actually. I thought maybe we wouldn't get through the book because I thought we'd only have like 8 listeners and they would all have our last names.
Yep, that was a fear.
and that's the thing, you see, now it's both the fact that we've got real listeners sort of like excites me and makes me want to, gives me the enthusiasm to keep going. But it also, I would now feel bad if we stopped.
I agree.
Feel a horrible sense of guilt if I didn't keep going at this point.
I'm with you. There's times when I'm tired and frustrated and just don't have the time to do the proper work needs to be done on the preparing for a chapter, but I think our listeners are depending on us.
Well, I tell you what, you faked it every time. I have never noticed. I've noticed when I've been like that. Oh my God, I've noticed those times. But you always bring it. Yeah. All right. Well, as always, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhall@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter @ghostharrenhall. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and again, Cosmic Ellie Ray does all the work. We're on YouTube too.
When I remember to upload those YouTube episodes. And hey, this seems like a really great time to go out and give us a 5-star rate.
A season rating of 5 stars would be nice.
Yes. and a great review as well. We'd really appreciate that to help us get the word out, and we'd be forever thankful.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.